Okay. Now we should be good.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Oh. We will know momentarily when it registers if everyone's still here for us. Oh. You can hear? All right, fantastic. Thank you very much, Crispy.
Oh, brilliant.
Is it loud enough? Are we balanced good?
Move it closer to my mouth. Hello. There we go.
Okay. Well, we should be pretty okay then. It says it's quiet, but I don't really know if I can do a ton about that at the moment. So we'll give it...
move my mic closer to my mouth.
Gotcha, gotcha. Awesome.
Yay, that works. Good.
Ah.
Brilliant.
Thank you for sitting through the troubleshooting.
Now we can get this show on the road.
Exactly, we can. It'll be fantastic. Oh, I think we lost our people, or it's not registering them yet. So I've got to give it a second. I hate the lag between it telling you when people are there and when they aren't.
I know.
Okay. Hey, it's an Alma watching us. Look at that. Oh. Okay. So, for those of you who are now joining us, what the goal of this first stream is, or what the series of streams we're looking to do here is, we're looking to create a sort of guide through year one's lore in Destiny. So what we're going to do is, for instance, tonight we're going to do a bit of a walkthrough through a couple of these Earth missions, primarily the first couple ones you actually run through. We may, if we have time and freedom, even throw ourselves into the strike here. You've got people saying hi to you, Lau.
Hey, Rebecca.
And that way we can, we'll talk about the Fallen, we'll talk about Guardians, we'll talk about the Darkness, and just kind of give you an idea of the picture of the beginning of this game where we all were so terribly confused. The people walking you through this here are LouRou here from the Dames and myself, Traveler's Blade. I'm from the Safe Gamers, and we have been given the privilege of getting to kind of give you this guide, as it were. Lau, do you have anything to add to that?
Just that I'm looking forward to it a lot.
Oh yeah,
Lore is
very
really
exciting.
my thing.
And I know a lot of people are under the impression that Destiny doesn't have a story, and that's a wrong impression because it does have a story. It's just been hiding from us. So I want to start us off, and I'm actually just going to read a very nice little grimoire here. It's the Darkness card. It's one of, I think, one that should have been given to us at the very beginning in the game. Could have been just read to us, but I'm just going to start right off on this. Something hit us, killed our golden age, nearly wiped us out. Only the Traveler saved us, and at a shattering cost. The speaker tells us of a cosmic force that swept over us and caused the collapse. Legend calls it the Darkness, the Traveler's ancient enemy which hunted it across space. All we have left are questions. Centuries of debate gave birth to competing arguments on the nature of the Darkness and the collapse. The Pajari position describes the Darkness as a force with both physical and moral presence, an actualization of evil. Pajari art depicts the Darkness as a great storm, or as a change in conduct, a corruption that emerged from within and poisoned the Golden Age. Saint 14's position argues that the Darkness was an invading armada, an alien force of incredible but tangible power. Some adherents believe that this armada sprang from species rejected or discarded by the Traveler for their sins. Ulan Tan's thesis considers the Darkness a necessary symmetry to the Traveler in a cosmic balance. In this view, the Traveler's goodness led it to the sacrifice for others, and it is up to us to return this goodness by healing the Traveler. The Monist position, or the deflationary position considers the darkness as a technologically sophisticated force, perhaps a post-singularity intelligence. Adherents invoke information theory or contend that the universe is a simulation, allowing advanced intelligence to gain weakly causal powers by bending the rules. The acataleptic clause claims that we are intrinsically unable to understand the darkness. In many respects, this belief parallels the Praxic Creed, which suggests that we should stop worrying about the nature of the darkness and focus on resisting and defeating it. Certain positions, often labeled heretical, imply that the traveler itself triggered the collapse, or that it knew the darkness was coming for it and hoped to use the solar system as a sacrifice or a proxy army. The binary star cult is one notable example. And this card just opens things up to this idea of giving us kind of an understanding on what the darkness is, and the fact that really, in truth, nobody knows entirely what we're facing. Everyone has their theories and their ideas, but ultimately the darkness is a summation of the forces that face us. And the Traveler came to us and empowered us to face it for whatever reason, whether that be its own preservation or our preservation, or good or evil or anything in between. So that's the Darkness card, and I feel like that one just kind of really brings you a little bit more up to speed on things. Anything to add there, Lau?
Beautiful reading there.
Thank you.
But again, the darkness is such a subjective thing to so many different characters in this world. No one can really truly prove what it is. It has so many different faces and aspects that we can't all link them together. It's almost beyond our understanding.
Oh.
Well, I think it's interesting.
Oh, I love this fearsome concept that it holds. This idea that it really is just everything around us, and that we're ever plunging out into the darkness. And with that in play, I also wanted to kind of touch on just the idea of what the Guardians and the Ghosts and we are as our player characters, because we don't really have an idea of who we are outside of these light zombies, perhaps. And so I'll start with the main Ghost card. And the quote from the speaker is that, in its dying breath, the Traveler created the Ghosts to seek out those who can wield its light as a weapon, Guardians to protect us and to do what the Traveler itself no longer can. Built from machinery and the Traveler's light, Ghosts guide their Guardian companions in the quest to reclaim our solar system. Every Ghost seeks out its Guardian among the ancient dead. The Ghost serves as a scout, librarian, and mechanic, also door opener, waking ancient machinery and cracking alien codes. In the right situations, a Ghost can even save a Guardian from death. But Ghosts are not immortal, and as far as Guardians know, every loss is irreplaceable. So basically what we know is that the Traveler, weakened, decided to sort of siphon off its power into these little ghosts, and by some means these ghosts are able to literally resurrect us from being dead, these previous individuals. And when they do, we are also suffused with the Traveler's light, giving us the ability to use that light and obtain the abilities that belong to Titans, Hunters, and Warlocks in the different ways they apply. We don't necessarily know anything about, if our characters were previously, in some way, shape, or form, the class that they are when they come back to life. But we know that the Ghost suffuses us with abilities, and something in our history involved us knowing how to use weapons, or perhaps the Traveler magically teaches us that.
Space magic. Exactly,
space magic. And so that's kind of the idea of where we start. Is, we'll come back and we'll touch more on things like the collapse and the Traveler itself, and previous historic events that have occurred in the Cosmodrome and on the moon, and all these wars and things that kind of detail a lot of what we're missing. We'll try and touch some on the Golden Age. But initially, we're gonna drop down into Earth, and Lau, actually, she's our resident expert here on the Fallen. If you're ever wanting just to listen to her talk about it more than even just here, she has a YouTube video on her own channel. It's 30 minutes long, and it's definitely worth a listen. But I'm basically going to just kind of hand things over to her. I'll watch you guys in chat. If you have questions, you can poke them through, and I'll maybe feed some of them back through as we go along. I'd love to have your questions so that we can just kind of keep this naturally and flowing and give you the information you actually want to have about some of this initial stuff. So I'm going to drop us down into the iconic restoration mission. Is there anything else you want to add, Lau?
No, let's just go for it.
All right, fantastic.
Ball rolling.
I'm gonna bump us to 26. Let's see if 26 makes them tough enough to actually be shot at. Oh.
Well, the first time we walked through this, it took us what, a minute?
Oh yeah, I think we were done in 4 flat. It was terrible. Need a little more time. Need a little more time to talk. Oh.
Exactly.
So you're gonna.
So much to cover.
You're gonna start telling us about the Cosmodrome, right, Lau?
Yeah, the Cosmodrome. The Cosmodrome is in old Russia, and it's actually based off a real-world place called the Baikonur Cosmodrome, which is a cosmodrome in Kazakhstan in the real world. And Russia launches a lot of their space program from there, so this was kind of a fictional continuation of that place in the real world, but applied with destiny physics, destiny magic, if you like. This is really where the golden age began. This is where the technology was concentrated and where people went to build new colonies beyond Earth on places like Venus and Mars and the moons of Jupiter. A lot of the golden age technology was siphoned into this place, so civilian technology was remarkably low tech, like what we have today, because everything went towards the space program and humanity's expansion as a species into the wider galaxy. This was the heart of us growing as a species. I think that's the best way to put it. So, this was the cradle of humanity.
I one of the few we have Draken over here wondering if this is snow or sand. I think it's white rocks.
Snow.
I think it's white rocks. That's what it is.
It could be white rocks.
Oh, I recall Ghost talking about one of his early statements about talking about seeing all the ships fleeing Earth back early on before post Golden Age. And it's just interesting to picture this place as being active and not just a rusty mess.
Well, our Ghost actually comments on that, saying that to see this place in its prime must have been absolutely amazing. So much traffic coming through here, people from all walks of life, civilians, scientists, astronauts, everyone.
Yeah.
This is where you came if you wanted to expand, to grow, to become part of humanity's future.
It's a little bit significant, isn't it? This Cosmodrome. Oh, and a fantastic starting place.
Yes, definitely. It's often said that the universe is the birthright of humanity, and I think this place really captures that soul, you know?
It really does. This mass pursuit of space. Oh. And here, infesting this wonderful place, we have hordes of Fallen.
Hordes is an appropriate word.
Isn't it, though? I rather like that description.
We should check it out.
Oh, and of the Fallen that we have here, we actually have, it's primarily House Devils. Correct, Lau?
Yes, House Devils. Yes. They can be identified by the amount of red they wear. Red is their signature color. It would be, considering they're called devils.
Makes a little bit of sense. It's a little bit disappointing that their cloak doesn't match them.
are really the house that it rules the Cosmodrome. They are everywhere in the Cosmodrome. They're like a plague. And they are here because, like I said, this was where humanity's golden age really began. And the Fallen, as we know them, are scavengers. They pick clean the bones of the golden age to ensure their own survival. So all our technology they can steal, break down, and mass produce ether from using their servitors. So the ruins of our old world, they're keeping them alive, which I find quite interesting. So even in death, there is life.
Thanks to the Fallen. I guess we owe the Fallen a thanks for that.
Yes. Go back above ground. I don't like dark spaces.
It's where the Hive prefers to hide.
Hive. Ugh.
Oh.
Where are we going now? Oh, we need to go.
It's all to the yeah, it's the old stairwell area. Let's see here. Yeah, the core grimoire card for the Fallen details them as ruthless scavengers that are brutal and uncaring. They arrived. They were one of the very first to arrive after the collapse, correct?
I think they were actually the first.
That sounds about right.
Which is why when civilians in the city think of the darkness, they think of guys with 4 arms who want to cut them apart with swords.
And that's why House Devils
they're
is
the most tangible part of the darkness, because other parts of the darkness are quite difficult to grasp for the average civilian. But the Fallen are a very real threat to the people of the city.
Especially with
Most
their
people know what they look like.
Their massive presence on Earth.
Definitely.
And if you didn't know, the unique sort of flow of the Fallen is derived from a sort of lost or ancient sense of nobility that they have. Which is why they have this sort of unique class system that you don't really see in the same fashion with the other factions. For instance, the Cabal, it's very militarian, and with the Hive, it's just sort of their very creation fits them into their role. But with the Fallen, there's a class system in it that we have the dregs, we have the Vandals, and we have their arms and their position really indicating who and what they are. Let me see if I can pull up the Dreg card right fast. Alright. Yes. Dregs cling to the lowest rung of fallen society. Docked of their lower arms in a ritual of humiliation and obedience, dregs seek to prove their worth. Only a few will survive to gain promotion and regrow their limbs. Their suicidal bravery is fueled by ambition and shame. So in short, every time you kill a dreg, you are cutting short the hopes and dreams of a small, harmless creature.
Now don't you feel bad? All he wanted was that promotion.
Darn
Such a
promotion.
shame.
Poor dregs. They weren't asking for much in life.
The Fallen... Yeah. The Fallen really, their society, like you say, it's based off honor and one's place in the ranks, which can be compared in today's world, compared to in today's world as a meritocracy, which is a system where one's place in society is earned through hard work, struggle, merit. Nothing is handed out to you, which makes sense because they're scavengers. They can't afford to throw resources at anyone because their parent was some important captain or baron. You have to earn your place to prove to your Kel that, hey, those resources, they're worth giving them to me. I will do good work, and I will keep the house prosperous and ensure our survival.
It's a game of worth. And while we're on the subject there of the classes and everything, we just killed Rixus, which is actually fascinatingly a lot more important than it feels like in the and when you first go about it in this mission here, because Rixus is actually a decently important individual, because a unique fact about the poor House of Devils is that they didn't have a Kel, which you'll know that House of Wolves, House of Kings, all of them have Kel or in the case of House of Kings, I feel like they have multiple Kells. I don't really know why. What ether is?
You cut out there. We went through a loading screen.
Yeah, those darn loading screens. Well, actually, I'm going to divert my attention because we actually do have an interesting question here from Alma in the chat. We've mentioned ether a few times, but what all do we actually know about what ether is?
Very little is actually known about ether. The main feature of ether is that the fallen need it to survive. Without it, they will die. They will wither, and it's almost like drowning from the inside of them, suffocating. It keeps them alive, it's their sustenance. But what it actually is, we don't really know. It's gaseous, so it's a gas that they inhale, and it's described as being rich and makes them feel like they're full of strength when they inhale it. We don't know exactly how the gas triggers the metamorphosis in size. Dregs have the least amount of ether because they're the lowest of the lowest rung. And as such, they are scrawny and small and not very strong. Whereas a Kell and an Archon, they consume the most ether. So they're so much taller than the rest of the Fallen, so much more powerful. They can kill a Guardian with one stomp of their armored foot. I mean,
Yeah.
crazy. But what ether is, we really don't know. I know that some of the Warlock circles have actually hypothesized that it could be the souls of the Fallen, and that their bodies are just husks in which the soul resides, which is an interesting theory. We do know that the Fallen need their servitors to create ether, and ether can be produced from anything that has enough energy and mass, which is why they're scavengers. They pick clean the ruins of our golden age for technology which they can cannibalize and turn into ether with the help of their servitors. And that ensures an entire house's survival.
It's just
It's still very secretive. I'd like to know more.
yeah. It's fascinating to think that, you know, of all of the species, the Fallen are the least necessarily malicious. Their intent is almost entirely flung on survival for many of the houses. And then you have individuals like Skolas who want a little bit more than to survive. But just with their endless need to obtain, consume, and alter into ether, it's a fascinating system of dependency that just keeps them in an endless need to invade and scavenge.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. We can almost paint them in a sort of sympathetic light if we look at it from that perspective. If you put humanity in their shoes, I mean, for example, without food and the right environment, humanity would die. So when we go to colonize new worlds, we need to implement these systems, or else there's no point in going there because your whole colony would be wiped out by starvation.
Yeah.
The Fallen don't really have that choice. They just need to go from world to world wherever they can run to. They don't have the luxury of a space program or a colony recruitment system. It's just, if we go there, we might die. But we've got to do it, or else we're going to die anyway.
And that's the endless cycle for the Fallen. And back to our individual missions topic. We just ran the restoration mission, which I'm sure many of you remember just feeling like, oh, I'm going back to Earth and I'm gonna go get a warp drive, whatever that is. And that's basically what you do. You go back to get your warp drive, but on your way you encounter Rixus, the Devil Archon. And Rixus was serving both as Kell and Archon for the House of Devils. So killing him was actually a monstrous blow to the House Devils, and it's frankly the reason that everything else we did with them was possible, and Lau can actually explain why with their ties to their servitors and all of that, right?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Rixus, why did he have two jobs to begin with? Technically, Kell and Archon are separate. They work together to rule the house, but they're two separate roles. Rixus was fulfilling both roles because the House of Devils was becoming desperate. After the Battle of the Six Fronts, where the Devils tried to invade the city and the Titans pushed them back, legendary titan Saint 14, whose helmet you probably recognize, the blinding helmet, as we like to said, we can't just stand our ground. We've got to push. We've got to push out there and take the enemy head on in the field. And everyone's like, nah, you're crazy. He's like, oh, fine, I'll go myself. And he took on the House of Devils by himself, and he killed the Kell of Devils by headbutting him, of all things, which is why there is a dent in the helmet of Saint 14. This made the Devils desperate, and Rix is like, okay, I've got to step up. So he's fulfilling those two roles. Then, we as Guardians kill him for the possession of the warp drive, which will enable our ships to go into orbit. So they've lost a Kell, and they've lost an Archon, and now all they've got left is their Prime Servitor. And by killing Rixis, we have made the Prime Servitor of the Devils, Sepix Prime, vulnerable to attack. Because so long as the Archon is in proximity to the Prime, neither one can actually be killed, because they can just transfer ether between each other. So if Rixis is weak, Sepix will transfer ether and he'll become strong again, and vice versa. So by killing one away from Sepix, by killing Rixis away from Sepix, we sever their proximity link, allowing us to kill him, which allows us to kill Sepix in turn, which makes the Devil's Lair strike possible. If we didn't kill him in that first mission, that strike couldn't happen.
Which is just...
It's a bit underwhelming, that first mission, isn't it?
Yeah.
This huge connotation of the power vacuum, and it's just like, it's not even mentioned.
Yeah. And I'm just going to drop the servitor card in here so that we can kind of get an understanding of what are servitors. Servitors are living relics of the once mighty fallen civilization. Packed with ultra-sophisticated machinery, they process matter and energy into the ether that the fallen depend on for life. In battle, they support the Fallen with defensive systems and their own powerful energy weapons. Outside, they anchor Fallen comms and provide vital technological acumen. Servitors have complex relationships with each other and with their Fallen crews. Servitors are attached to a Prime, a massive servitor which exists in unclear symbiosis with a Fallen Archon. The Archon conveys the Kell's wishes to the Prime Servitor and exerts some measure of control. Recent developments suggest that Prime Servitors are more than a focus of worship and logistical activity. They may play a key role in Fallen's starflight, which is interesting, especially when we get inside one of the catches and we get to see the giant servitor for the ship there.
Definitely.
So what's really interesting is every time you're killing a servitor, the dent in the Fallen's ability to survive is theoretically monstrous, given that these servitors are not just something they're mass producing. These are living relics. These are ancient collectors of knowledge and preservers of their species. And then you have the Prime Servitors, which, as we know of Sepix Prime, they're revered beyond to the point of worship. And if House Devils, one measly guardian in search of a warp core, managed to kill both their Archon and Kell. Which leads us into our next mission, which Lau and I were discussing this one a little while ago, and we theorized that there must be a small chunk of time between this mission and the Restoration mission. Because as you know, we encounter the Hive here on this mission, and the Fallen have attempted to lock away the Hive. And we were sitting here trying to figure out why they didn't just try and kill them. And because of the fact that the Fallen's leadership fell apart, and the fact they no longer have their Archon, they have no means to communicate with their Prime Servitor and have no leadership. Other than, what's the next rank, Lau? They have their...
Below Archon?
Yeah, they just have their captains, don't they?
Barons are below
They're
Archons,
barons.
which is like a super captain, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
They're captains that have been given the honor of being able to own their own skiff and crew in the House fleet.
Right. Yeah. So with really no definable leadership, we think that what it really boiled down to was that the Fallen really weren't sure what to do, and so they locked away the hive to survive, as seems to be the main motivation of a lot of their actions. And we'll touch on just what the hive are themselves a little while later. Though, Lau, you had that interesting bit of information on which sect of the hive these are from, right?
Yeah. The hive that we will come across in the breeding ground that the Fallen have locked away are called the Hidden Swarm. And the Hidden Swarm are the hive that players are most likely to come into contact with. They are the first line of defense for the hive fortresses, and also the vanguard for invasion fleets. It has interesting connotations here.
Yeah.
Because before this moment, the hive haven't been seen on Earth in centuries, since they took the moon.
That wizard came from the moon. I have to say that just about every time.
I knew you were going to drop that in there.
Oh.
Has to be done. Sorry.
It does. So we'll touch. We're gonna discuss the hive. I think that's gonna be our next stream as well. We'll head over to the moon and talk about the hive. But our current emphasis is gonna be the Fallen here. Man, I cannot get them loud enough.
I might just leave that Dreg alive. I feel sorry for him. Oh, that guy punched him in the face.
Poor Dreg. No promotion for that Dreg. Oh. And of course, you know, we being the pretentious civilization that we are, we assume that, oh, the Fallen locked something away. It must be a weapon. That was Lou's talking, and she detailed that, and then we find out that it's something that even the Fallen are worried about and unprepared for in their current state. And so here we end up investigating what turns out to be something that really would have been better off untouched.
This is why Guardians shouldn't poke around with things they don't understand.
Cough, cough, dead orbit. Cough, cough.
Yep.
We're in.
Oh.
This was one of Skywatch's old array stations, a link to the lunar colony.
So do we have any questions that we can answer here? I know we're a little bit all over the place. Yeah. Questions can help us get some direction to you guys.
Dead end. Fallen sealed this gate.
No questions?
Being quiet by Rebecca.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it as loud as possible, and it is just not cooperating with me.
The Fallen really didn't want anybody getting in.
Oh man. Oh, it looks like the stream is trying to catch up with us. It's a little bit slower. So yeah, if we can get some questions,
Sit down.
oh, that'd be good. If we can get some questions, you know, it's, you know, part of the problem is the original missions of Destiny really came out less of less of a organized and properly orchestrated story, and more of space tourism. They just kind of walked us through their galaxy that they had available, and showed off to us the various areas and whatnot. But really failed to deliver on a direct and synchronized story. So what we're trying to do is we're giving you what information we can about the Fallen, about their classes, about what they're doing and why they're here. But if you have any actual questions just about anything in relation to the Fallen, in relation to Earth, you know, there's a lot of information that even isn't just contained within the Grimoire. There's, you know, Bungie's done streams, other people have gotten to talk to art directors and story directors, and that information is just kind of bled out and spread across. And so do we have any questions at all? Okay.
Silence ensues.
Indeed. It seems we'll just have to press on for the moment.
Apparently I'm being quiet because I'm not standing close enough to your character.
Yeah, I'm just gonna follow right behind you this whole time now.
Oh, we have a question.
There it is. Is there a difference between Fallen captains who have blades or who have guns? I imagine that's mostly preference, right?
It's preference. Being a captain, you get the choice of the best weapons in the Fallen arsenal. So you've got swords, you've got scorch cannon, shrapnel launchers. They've earned the right to choose to be outfitted with the best.
And some of them think that the best is a pointy stick. I agree with them.
Pointy sticks are cool.
They're the best.
The Hive seem to think so as well.
Some seem more evil. You know, I would guess that there are definitely, you know, you hear Varix talk about how Skolas was cruel even for a Kel, which implies that there is definitely some disparity in the hostility of the individual Fallen. That's why we have, you know, someone like Varix that got fed up with it and turned. So there is space for the Fallen to be more or less evil. And I suppose, you know, without having access to the, you know, a lot of captains are just, you know, drones in the army for us because we're a one-man army of guardians. Or two-man army. Or three-man, or six-man, however many we throw out at the time.
A fire team.
Yeah, we're a fire team army. And so we don't get, you know, get that feeling that captains are as powerful as they really are. But for a captain to have reached the position they are in, oh my, that poor wizard! I should have waited a minute on him.
Yeah, that was quick.
Whoops. I always get in that habit of take the wizard out first. Take the wizard out first. And so captains have killed hundreds, if not thousands, of foes and performed incredible feats to reach their position. And we just kind of mow over them.
Like it's nothing.
Yep. So, and that's more of just a game design thing than anything. But there definitely are the more powerful captains and barons and more nefarious ones.
At the end of the day, the Fallen are a race like humanity, and in humanity you have good people and you have bad people and you have morality's many shades of grey. And they're sapient too, so you'll have upstanding individuals and those who are not so, who prefer the darker methods like torture and maiming people.
Yeah.
Also, trying to survive, the sheer desperation can make you do some terrible things. And that's the same with humanity as well.
Yeah, I'm... Oh. My hand cannon. I am using the 6 Dreg Pride. It's either a drop from Prison of Elders or occasionally Varric sells it, or you can get it from the Warden's Chance thing, or any of those. It's a solid PvE hand cannon.
Ooh, more questions.
Oh.
Why are wizards with the Fallen? You would think that they're a totally different type of species.
That is because...
They weren't actually with the Fallen. The Fallen had locked them away. That wizard was the mother of that breeding ground, if you like. And they had locked her away with her spawn to contain the darkness within that room.
Oh. Darkness containing darkness.
That's why it's called the Dark Within mission.
Oh, Bungie and their clever names. Oh. Let's see here. Next is the War Mind. The War Mind. Okay, are there any other questions directly on the Fallen, or on Earth and the Cosmodrome, or the early missions? Any questions on any of that? Because I would love to be able to give you guys more direct information on what you're wanting. I mean, I can sit here and read Grimoire to you all day, but that's not necessarily going to be as informative as giving you real, direct answers to the kind of questions that bubble in your mind as you're playing Destiny. I mean, for
We
instance,
like a tailor-made experience.
it's much more suited. You know, I know that everyone has questions about Destiny, and not everyone has the time to spend their hours sifting through Grimoire and trying to figure out the answers. But here's...
That's what we're for.
Yeah. So here's a fun bit of information for you, an interesting fact. The House of Devils, where did the Fallen come from? Did we get asked where they come from? Well,
I didn't.
where did the Fallen come from? Well, you know, it's kind of the same thing as where all the darkness came from, is it was out there, beyond necessarily
Over
our...
there.
Yeah, we don't really have a clear location for any of them, excluding that one wizard. It came from the moon.
Oh my God.
I had to get it in there again. We don't really have a clear idea of where any of the races came from, except that they were further out in the galaxies.
We do know that the Fallen had their own planet, their own homeworld, that they had to leave after an event called the Whirlwind, which is pretty much the Fallen version of the collapse of the Golden Age. We call it the collapse, they call it the Whirlwind.
And now they're here. In answer to your request, Alma, we are definitely going to talk about the Warmind. I was hoping to try and clear up a couple more directly Fallen related questions, since the Warmind is such a speculation heavy topic. Oh. But if there are no other Fallen related questions, I will drop us into here and we will get talking. And you know, I want to avoid speculation as much as possible, so we'll tell you what can kind of be known about the Warminds and about Rasputin. And there will inevitably be just some of the speculation, because Rasputin's not very talkative and we don't know a ton about him.
He's a bit antisocial towards Guardians, isn't he?
Yeah. What was it you said earlier about him trying to talk to us and it being a bit awkward?
Oh, you were talking about translating the Russian or something like that, wasn't it?
Oh, was that?
I can't
Well, there was that, and then there was you talking about him trying to introduce himself and be like, "Hey, I wiped out all your ancestors to keep you guys alive."
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's not a good way to start a conversation. Like, hey, I'm Rasputin, the Warmind. I wiped out all your ancestors to ensure that you could survive. That's great.
What about
Should
the
I really
House
be
of
talking to
Kings?
this computer, mummy?
Here's a good question. The House of Kings. That is a phenomenal question, because what about the House of Kings? You know, we know the least of all the houses. We know the very least about the House of Kings due to their generally elusive nature. Do you wanna take point with all your vast knowledge of the Fallen here, Lau?
I wouldn't say vast, but I'll give it a go. House of Kings are an extremely elusive fallen house. We know pretty much nothing about them. We don't even know who their Kell is, their Archon, or their Prime. All we know is that they occupy a few areas of the Cosmodrome. But from Grimoire cards, I think it's the Grimoire cards on the 2 King Barons from the House of Wolves missions. Prince Aldrin, the Queen's brother, mentions that the House of Devils don't really control themselves. From the shadows, the House of Kings pulls the string and makes it so that the devils want to attack the city. For example, the Battle of the Twilight Gap, where all the fallen houses banded together under one banner, the Kell of Kings manipulated the other fallen, saying that the Traveler is our salvation, our last hope, and we're not really sure if it is or it isn't, but he promised that. And from what I can gather from the Grimoire cards, the House Kings are interested in one thing and one thing only, and that's power, control over the other houses. Oh, hello, Drex. Clear the area.
There we go.
They wish to control the other houses, and the one thing that the Fallen revere the most is the Traveler, the great machine, as they call it. It is incredibly special to them for reasons that we don't quite understand yet.
Though it's strongly believed, or is it canon, that the Fallen were previously visited and or blessed by the Traveler.
That is canon, yes it is. Barracks has confirmed it. If you stand long enough next to him, like I do when I'm bored, he mentions things like, the great machine is ours too, Guardian, and do you think the great machine will leave you as it left us before the dark, and stuff like that. So it is canon that they were the race that came before us. They received the Traveler's blessing, just as we did, and it left them during their whirlwind.
Which is
pretty much the same as our collapse.
Which is fascinating and ominous. It leaves the kind of wondering if that's because the Fallen were what they are, such a ravenous species, or if even they were that before the Traveler left them. I've wondered if perhaps the Fallen weren't always a species of scavengers, but the Traveler perhaps created a dependency in them. If all that was left of humans were Guardians and Guardians needed the light, what would Guardians do? We would hunt.
Exactly.
And scrounge.
Well, as Varric says, he keeps the lore of the Fallen, the history of the Fallen close, so that it is not forgotten by the houses. And he says, we're great long ago, and then the sky fell away, and whirlwind ripped away the past, all honor lost, all hope. So from that we can tell that the Fallen definitely weren't always scavengers. They had honor, they had codes of law and morals, and which were kept by the House of Judgment.
Interesting.
So they did have a moral code of which their society lived by.
And now they are scavengers who are furious that the Traveler left them and are right on our tails.
Well, they see it as their own. They came first and we have stolen it from them. We don't know if the Traveler left them for something they did, though. That's something many people speculate about, but there's not a clear-cut canon answer to it yet.
Let's see here.
Let's check the other one.
We have Alma in here talking about the Grimoire card for defeated Skolas in the Prison of Elders also mentions the Traveler and explores the possibility of the Fallen having light and ghosts, which is a terrifying thought.
Indeed it is. I think I've read this Grimoire card. I think Varric is speculating about it. He says something along the lines of, was it like this before the whirlwind? Were there fallen heroes crowned in ghosts who strode the battlefield, fearless and full of light, or something like that?
Which there's, in my personal opinion, this drifts towards speculation. I've never really felt compelled to view the Traveler as some sort of villain or even something inherently nefarious, but you have this wondering of if its motivations are even necessarily morally driven, or if it is what it creates, and it's this being just trying to survive. The heretical view of us being shock troopers is one that fascinates me. This idea that it didn't come to save us, but came to save itself using us, and subsequently did grant us these gifts and grant us these abilities. But that is speculation, and we will have, I intend to have a session where we can just sit and talk about the Traveler, and maybe we'll grab someone else in and get their theories in on it and just get a kind of an open debate thereupon. For the moment, I'd like us to drift over to the very thing we're hunting here, the war mines. What are war mines? There's a good question for everyone. I once watched a video where someone was making fun of the quote-unquote lack of story in Destiny, and he got to this point and he's like, and then we get to Rasputin, and somebody's like, what's Rasputin? And then he completely changes topics. Yep.
Pointing.
Yep. And You know, it's a little bit understandable if you haven't done any digging, but war mines are pretty much what they sound like. They are, how many, you know, there's the, you know, at least with Rasputin, we know that he is a machine designed for the purpose of battle and defense. They were originally designed for interplanetary defense, correct? Even before the darkness?
Yes, that is correct. We don't know how many were created, but we do know that there were definitely 2 that were created, Rasputin, and in the game, the War Mind of Mars is mentioned, but we don't know its name.
Interesting.
Or what happened to it.
There is the theory, I'm not sure how much backing was behind it, but I remember listening to Guardian Radio, Bife was talking about there being a fairly strong theory that there are a lot of people that believe perhaps the 9 are in fact the war mines.
Well, this is mentioned in the Grimoire card for the 9. I mean, the first sentence of the Grimoire card is, the 9 are deep space war mines.
Yeah.
So that is speculation within the canon. The characters within the canon do speculate that.
Charlemagne, was that?
Pretty interesting.
Charlemagne was, Charlemagne's vault. We have Charlemagne's vault, but is there...
That's on Mars. So,
yeah, do we think that Charlemagne...
Maybe the Mars was Charlemagne.
That would be
I know
interesting.
they're named after historical figures, like Rasputin was a historical figure in Russian history. He was very important, often called the Tyrant. And in one of the Grimoire cards for, I think it's Ghost Fragment Old Russia 2, the mind of a colony ship refers to Rasputin as the Tyrant, like he was in real world history, which I thought was really interesting. Tyrant is someone who abuses their power, so maybe Rasputin abused his. We don't know. We don't know about what the war mines did when the collapse came. It's interesting to think about.
We do know that there is a vault of Charlemagne. We theorize that eventually we'll get a raid or something to get us there. We aren't really sure on that. But there is oh, I love that Vandal. I forget about him every time though. We literally played this minute. Played this just like an hour ago, and I still forgot that he shows up. What was I saying? I was on the subject of oh, I can... Charlemagne? Is that what I was on? I think it was before I was on Charlemagne. Oh, well. Oh, yeah, there's a consistent theme between all of Bungie's games. There were no connections between Marathon and Halo. They were 2 entirely separate universes and games, but there's a consistent theme by Bungie, and it's this idea of rampancy. And Bife, in one of the Guardian radio streams, talks about it pretty explicitly and kind of details this idea, but it's the idea that an AI eventually sort of loses itself. In fact, I believe in Marathon, primary thing is this AI that's just gone out of control, and you're combating that. And from that theory, the idea that perhaps Rasputin went mad amidst it all, and became this, you know, this unusually hyper-sentient being, that had these derivative opinions is very likely given what we know of Bungie. But again, there's nothing really saying, because we know so little about, you know, what happened to the war mines during the collapse or after.
I think there's a great part of one of the Rasputin Grimoire cards that touches on that sort of idea of rampancy. I'll find it. Where is it? If I don't die.
I'll keep you alive for the time being.
Yay, thank you. Where is it? Oh, it's Mysteries, isn't it?
Is it the one with I Alone Survived and all that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's in
I am alone. I survived alone. I cast off the shield and I shrugged my shoulders so that the billions fell off me into the ash. They made me to be stronger than them and to learn, and I learned well. It is alone and it is strong and it won. even over the gardener, and she held power beyond me, but the gardener did not shrug and make herself alone. It always wins. I am made win, and now I see the way. That sort of sounds like he's learnt from the darkness during the collapse, which is quite terrifying to think about.
Yeah.
Using the enemy's tactics against it. But who is he fighting to protect? Does he even know anymore? Love questions like that.
Yeah. We know so little about the war mines. It's frightening to know, because we know that Rasputin is powerful and dangerous, and it's something that, you know, the Fallen have interest in, the Hive have interest in. Everything's hunting down Rasputin. And we don't really know why. I suppose we don't know if the Cabal want Rasputin.
House kings, so maybe they wish to possess the weapons that Rasputin controls to threaten humanity so that they can win back the Traveler. Or maybe they feel that using Rasputin they themselves could control the Traveler. Because that is their #1 goal, and we see them here trying so desperately to hack into Rasputin's mainframe.
Exactly.
His mind.
The Fallen are incredibly desperate. Do we have any other questions relating to the war mines, Rasputin?
Okay, I've pulled out everything they made.
Anything on there?
We should destroy this thing.
That 10-second delay makes it really hard to, you know, sit there and not repeatedly ask if we have questions.
Yeah. Are you gonna golden gun this thing again?
Yes. Yes, I am. It was immune to my first shot. That's disconcerting.
They didn't get much. Kept hitting an active firewall.
Haha! I successfully detonated my trip mine with a throwing knife. Oh. No questions on Rasputin or the other war mines, or anything about their purposes or anything of that?
An AI built to defend Earth. He faced the darkness and survived. And he's protecting something here in the Cosmodrome. We have to
He
find
is
a way
protecting something here in the Cosmodrome. Possibly just himself and his data banks.
I'm beginning to sense this sort of overwhelming sort of story arc of survival from every single party.
You know, honestly, I think we
The
have...
the Fallen want to survive. Rasputin's goal is to survive because he is alone. We're trying to survive as the last city, and nature's beginning to reclaim our worlds. So everything is opposing each other.
I suppose the only ones that really aren't necessarily out for quote-unquote survival are the Hive, the Vex, and I guess the Cabal. We don't really know anything about the Cabal. But we know that the Hive and the Vex are conquerors.
Definitely.
Yes, I would love to see a lot more emphasis, especially on Rasputin. I want to know more about Rasputin in the next expansion. I don't necessarily know if we'll get that. We do know because the Hive that you want to explain to people the whole Blood of Oryx Hive group thing. Wow.
They'll come up in the next mission. We could explain now. Basically, the Hive are divided into 3 known sects. There could be more, but we have the Hidden Swarm that we talked about earlier, who are the front line, the vanguard in an invasion, and the first line of defense of the Hive fortresses. Then we have the Spawn of Crota, which, as the name suggests, they are a Hive descended from Crota himself, the son of Oryx. And then we have the Blood of Oryx, who are the Hive descended from Oryx himself, born of his flesh and his blood. Kind of creepy way.
Exactly, on the Grimoire card for the Blood of Oryx. They are a shadow of an unknown master, harbingers of a power beyond anything we've faced. Research into the ciphers and runes of the Hive leads the Cryptarchs to believe the Hive sects all serve one great master. The blood of Oryx are feared to be the direct servants of this Dark Lord. The name Oryx appears too many times in Hive rituals to be ignored. And interestingly, Lau was telling me about the fact that technically Crota himself doesn't belong to the spawn of Crota sect. He actually is one of the blood of Oryx. And of the groups pursuing, you know, we have Crota pursuing Rasputin, which means that Oryx also has to be aware of Rasputin, and that inevitably means that something that powerful and that interesting isn't going to be left ignored. So I imagine we will see seeing more of the War Mind come to Taken King.
I hope we do, just because they're so interesting and there's so little that we actually know of them, and yet all the other races seem to know everything about them.
And here we have the last array. And while, you know, we have kind of an idea of what we're doing come, you know, Restoration, we need a warp drive. The Dark Within, we think that, you know, the Fallen are hiding weapons or something. And the War Mind, we know that they're trying to, you know, they're digging on information of something powerful that we have to stop. So initially we're just kind of combating Fallen, combating Fallen, combating Fallen. And then we get the last array where we're tracking down codes. And for those of you who weren't really aware, the idea was that we really were trying to expand our communications arrays and our ability to branch out to other worlds and everything. And also, by doing this, we subsequently expand the range of Rasputin. Which is why we aggravate a lot of parties.
Most notably, we aggravate the Cabal by doing this.
Oh, the Cabal.
Rasputin takes control of the assets that were previously controlled by the Warmind of Mars. And one of the Grimoire cards details, I think it's one of the Rasputin cards. I think it's Rasputin... Or is it Legends 2? It's one of the Rasputin cards where we have a hunter who is tracking Valis to Arik, and she witnesses Rasputin totally destroy an entire battlefield of Cabal and Vex like it was nothing. And it terrifies her because she says, who was the more powerful here? Like, Rasputin is only just testing his strength after waking up. He could do so much more, and that terrifies this hunter in the Grimoire card.
Understandably.
Yeah, it's Rasputin 2. That's the Grimoire card.
And now we are headed to the array. So do we have any questions anymore? We've had it pretty quiet question-wise in the chat. You know, I suppose, especially thanks to House of Wolves, of all the groups, we know quite a lot about the Fallen in terms of just information we've actually been provided. Since House of Wolves kind of delved into things. We are not on 360. We are on the 1.
Or as I like to call it, the X-Bone.
The X-Bone. Oh. Oh, my jump failed me.
Oh, the Fallen have already been cleared out for us. That's
oh, look at that. We have a path carved right for us. Next week we will touch on. We'll dig in on the Hive. We'll be heading over to run through moon missions, and give you details there. So if you have questions to ask about the Hive and to understand on the Hive, then be thinking of those now. If I can, I hope to have an actual email registered for this so that I can collect questions and we can have a proper question and answer time sometime within the stream. I wasn't able to do that before this one. We had to kind of rush for getting this stream put out. just due to scheduling and some other technical issues. But next week will be on the Hive, and there are a lot of really interesting questions when it comes to the Hive and their origins and their purpose.
Again, with the dot below, we've got a lot of information about them, but we're still missing information about the key questions, like who are their gods? I mean, we know Crota and we know Oryx, but there are more.
Exactly.
Where do they come from? How do they serve the darkness? Are they slaves to the darkness? Did they choose to serve the darkness? So much we don't know.
We will be doing this stream. We will do the same time come next week, next Sunday, 8:30 p.m. CST. We will be doing 3 more streams like this leading up to the Taken King, so that we can we just want to provide even if it's not a total information, we want to help people be more informed than they were when we get to the Taken King, so that there's less of the there's going to be exceptional storytelling from what we've seen of Taken King, and there wasn't in year 1 of Destiny, and so we want to help just give you a resource to say, hey, I know some stuff about that Rasputin thing. I know some stuff about the Hive. And make it an overall more enjoyable experience.
Let's find the array.
So yeah, we will be doing
Yeah,
this.
A lot of people don't really have access to that lore because it's locked away in grimoire cards and stuff like that, spread all over the internet.
You have to.
We can actually bring this to people.
Exactly, and I promise we will be substantially more organized next week. We'll have more time to prepare. But especially, I wasn't too worried. This is, the Fallen we do have the most information about in general. Lore that comes from the raids. If we have the time, I would really like to organize maybe even a group to run through the raids and talk about some of that lore. But at the moment, I can't guarantee anything on doing raids. Mystic Rose, at the moment I do not have anything set up contact information wise for sending questions. I hope to have that by next week's stream. So for the moment, if what you can do for me is just kind of have those questions written down, we'll have an actual designated time next week or just throughout where I can answer questions and Lau can answer questions and we'll be able to help out. But I wasn't able to get an email registered just for the purpose of doing this yet.
I was just thinking, what a coincidence that the House of Kings were trying to get into Rasputin's mainframe, and now here they are gone on one of his arrays. They really want Rasputin, don't they?
Oh, they're obsessed. Gotta admire their commitment. Mystic,
Oh,
if Lau, would you be alright if Mystic were to send her questions to you on Band?
That's fine, yeah.
Alright, then
Absolutely fine.
if you want to message Lau here with your messages on Band, if you're a dame, and if you're on Band and you have questions you'd like to see answered next week, you can also message me on Band, and I will have them all marked down and we'll address them. And yes, VS, we are going to have this uploaded. I'm also going to attempt to extract the audio files here soon and get these available as podcasts for anyone to listen to. I intend to have this very available as a resource. But again, since the Grimoire cards are amazing. If you ever just... There's an incredible amount of lore hidden away in Destiny, and it's a shame that it's hidden away because it's exceptionally well written. So if you ever have some time, just sit down and read them away. My gamer tag is Traveler's Blade, and here we have LouRou.
It's working.
And you should be able to... Let's see here. You should be able to track down Lau in the in the band. And anyone who's in the band, I'm Traveler's Blade on the Safe Gamer side. You can message me with questions there. Anyone on the Damus side, go ahead and shoot Lau a message, and we'll get those questions organized. And yes, the audio grimoire. If you're ever wanting to just listen to... Thank you, Crispy. Thank you for typing those in. That was awesome. We do not have the podcast registered yet, VS. I have to get the audio extracted and decide what format I'm going to deploy it in. I will have that. I'll have links and all that for everything that way next week. Frankly, even after these initial sets of streams, what the hope is to give people kind of an up-to-speed resource for Taken King. But afterwards, I would really like to maybe even continue with some of these. If we don't get to do the raids, it would be fun to go back later and cover lore in the raids, and just continue to keep this a consistent thing to give people a way to know, what happened and is happening in Destiny, even beyond the main story. So.
There's just so much more than the story quests that we were given. It's a shame, really.
So much more. Oh, first death of the night. Hive Tomb Ship. Ah.
Oh wow, he doesn't like you.
So, do we have any other questions on the Fallen or the Rasputin or anything else? We can answer those right away, because we're here and we're running out of missions to run. And again, thank you all for showing up. It's been awesome to have a crowd. I'm really glad that there are those of you who are interested in learning and hearing about the lore.
Ooh, heavy demo. Yes, please.
I suppose if we have a minute, we could go stare at the Traveler and discuss a couple things about the Traveler if we have people who are interested in that for a bit.
Yeah, we can do that.
The Traveler is a little bit integral to Destiny's story.
Just a little bit.
I think we're clear. You need to see this.
Traveler. Alright, there is a yes please on talking about the Traveler.
Traveler it is then.
It's connecting to defense constructs.
That would be fantastic, Alan. We'd love to, it's a little bit hard to just kind of provide the steady stream of information. As much as we do have a lot of information in our hands that we would like to be able to offer you, but without kind of an idea of what people want and need to know, it's a little bit hard to direct this. That's why, we're starting with the Fallen, starting with Earth, and where things kind of kick off. So next week I hope to have a very viewer-guided sort of idea behind the whole stream. So yeah, send in questions. If you're on the Safe Gamers band, message me, Traveler's Blade, on there. If you're on the Dames band, message LouRou here, and we will compile those, research them, and we will tell you everything we can tell you about those questions. For the moment, I'm going to take us to the tower.
To get my grimoire cards out on the Traveler.
Yeah. Oh, I love the Traveler Grimoire cards.
They are beautifully written.
The Battle of Twilight Gap. Oh man, there's an event.
Oh, that's one of my favorites.
I can't remember. Let's see here. I would love to, that is very Fallen related. Excellent question. The Battle of Twilight Gap. Source of contentment for many. Let's see here. Can't remember how many cards, if any, are there directly discussing the battle. Do you know, Lau?
I believe one of the Skolas cards talks about it.
Is there? Alright, you track that down.
I think it's one of the Fallen Ghost fragments.
Yeah. And you can find a decent bit about it from reading about Zavala and the Crucible.
There's so much that feeds into the Battle of Twilight Gap. I mean, yes, it's very, very Fallen related, but it's also, you got a lot to do with the Titans tied in there.
Exactly.
And Zavala and Shax and Lord Saladin.
Oh man! If nobody knew, the Crucible Quartermaster was actually in the Battle of Twilight Gap, and they had to disable their his battle abilities and some of the facets of his mind for combat, and they turned him into a vendor so that he would be able to still apply his vast knowledge of weaponry and armaments. It's just a fun fact I figured out from scavenging stuff. There we go. This is my favorite place to stare at the Traveler.
Oh, mine too. Let's have a sit down.
Oh. At the Battle of Twilight Gap. Let's see here. Lord Saladin. Yeah. Commander Zavala and Lord Shax are both proteges of Lord Saladman, or Saladin if you prefer to be more proper. The Iron Banana of Lord Saladman. Not sure how I feel about that.
Love it.
Oh. So let's see here. Did you find that card from Skolas?
Yeah, I'm just looking at it. There's one passage, it's a speech he's giving to the House of Wolves. And one of the paragraphs in it says, "We gathered to take that city and save ourselves from extinction, saying to each other, we must be a storm, a whirlwind, a darkness, for it's said that only pain may be stolen from the dark, and we can let no more be stolen from us. We gathered to fight against our twilight, king and devil and winter, all of us, but not wolves. Why? What kept us from the gap, the reef, the queen, the slavers who played us against each other, and doctors into subservience?" That's the one passage he says. The Fallen saw it as their salvation. It was a battle they had to win, or else their entire species would go extinct.
Let's see here.
That's the one thing that could unite all the houses who are usually at war with each other. I find fascinating.
I'm digging through my grimoires here a bit. Yeah, Thunderlord was actually distinguished in the Gap, in the Battle of Twilight Gap. There's an interesting fact for you. If you didn't have enough reason to like Thunderlord, Thunderlord was an iconic weapon in the Battle of Twilight Gap, and if you aren't using it now, you should be. It's a beautiful weapon. Oh. Let's see here.
Obviously, the Yalahorn is quite tied into Twilight Gap as well.
Oh, yes.
Where's the card for the Yalahorn?
There we go.
There it is. The Yalahorn was designed by Fieselcrux, and it was built using the armor of the Guardians who died at the Battle of the Twilight Gap. And there isn't just one Yalahorn. There are many Yalahorns, and they were gifted to the survivors of the Twilight Gap to show the city's appreciation for their sacrifice, for the sheer amount of lives that were lost to the Fallen. Quite beautiful, really. The
Really
quote
is.
is, "If there is beauty in destruction, why not also in its delivery?" Which I think is a brilliant quote.
It is. And Callahorn is definitely befitting of the quote.
Yes. It's a symbol of honor and survival, according to the Grimoire card.
Oh, and, you know, I have over here pulled up from Destinypedia, which I could currently go through and dig through all their sources at the moment, but just going from the various listed grimoires that they've compiled and my checkings on those, it talks about how the Twilight Gap was, apparently it was actually the Kell of the House of Kings who manipulated all of the houses of the Fallen into the attack and forced the House of Devils into leading it. And as we know from the House of Wolves storyline, the House of Wolves was caught off guard by the Reef and subsequently wasn't able to join the Battle of Twilight Gap, and that's a substantial reason as to why we were able to overcome.
They had the largest fleet of any of the fallen houses. They had millions strong, and that is why the Queen intervened and the Reef War started, because she saw that if the House of Wolves made it to the city would be destroyed, the Reef would lose a potential ally, and they would be alone in the darkness. So she chose to reveal the Reef's presence to the outside world to save a people she had never met before, for strategic purposes.
Strategic purposes, indeed. The topic for next week, Rose, is going to be the Hive and history surrounding the moon. And if there are any questions you come up with in the middle of the week pertaining to the Fallen and everything there, we should have enough time to cover a couple of those there at the beginning. So feel free to send any questions relating to that in also, and we will cover those if we have the time. But now, since we've still got a little bit of time, let's talk about the Traveler. Oh, there are a lot of
elusive Traveler.
Beautiful Grimoire cards. One of the Grimoire cards for the Traveler is actually one that helped inspire my my gamer tag here. Do you want to read, or shall I?
Either. I don't mind. Which one are we going to read?
I was gonna start just with the core Traveler card rather than the Dreams of Alpha Lupi ones.
We could read one each. That's
sure.
Cool.
There we go. That'll work. Shall you start then?
Okay. So just the core one, the Traveler.
Yes.
Everything changed with the coming of the Traveler. It gave us gifts that transformed the solar system and the nature of human life. It ushered in the Golden Age, a time of miracles, but it never shared its deepest secrets. Where did the Traveler come from? Why did it offer us so much? Did it know it was being hunted across the stars? And why, when the darkness came, did it choose to stay and fight for us? Now the Traveler hangs, silent, above humanity's final sanctuary. It may be healing, it may be dying. It gave us everything it had to save us. And now its power lies with us, its guardians. That is the Traveler Grimoire card.
I love that card. It's so positive. We open up with this and such happiness about the Traveler. And then immediately you get just crushed with the weight of the second Traveler Grimoire card is actually one of the most fantastically written pieces I've ever read. And it's titled Dreams of Alpha Lupi, and if you're ever going through the Grimoire, you should go through and find every single card that is labeled with Dreams of Alpha Lupi, because we believe that all of those are associated with the Traveler. At some point I would love to just go through and gather them all together and see if there's anything that kind of crops up by their correlation. But this is the first of the Dreams of Alpha Lupi Ghost Fragment, the Traveler. You have lived as invisibly as possible, flicking from solar system to solar system, making grand plans, overseeing the culturing of civilizations, before leaving in a blink. But you have no recollection of ever wanting worship, or even thanks from those blessed by you. But memory is heavy now. It feels like lead and neutronium and electroweak matter fashioned into a moon-sized ball that you must carry as you move. Now your flight is rapid, your vast mind infected with such dread and toxic doubt that you find yourself afraid of the simple act of thought. And it is your children you must turn to now, in time of need. And this is the first card that kind of gives the idea that the Traveler, I feel, was always running. I think the grimoires point to the idea that the Traveler didn't come to us out of benevolence, didn't come to us out of nefariousness, but came to us out of necessity. That's my personal theory. I think it aligns with the grimoire. Do you want to read the next one, Lau?
Next one is another of the dreams of Alpha Lupi, and it reads, "This has been such a long chase. This will be the place you will fight and win. But do you really know why you go, where you go, and where this journey is taking you? The chase leads you where you need to be, you believe, unless you are being pushed." Again, that's the connotations of running, the idea that it is fleeing from the darkness.
Exactly.
That card just says it all.
It's perfect. And then the last one, which I think is probably the most terrifying of the cards relating to the Traveler, and possibly the most terrifying card in terms of its implications, is the last ghost fragment, the Traveler. And it's Dreams of Alpha Lupi again. It reads as follows. "The knife had 1,000,000 blades, and you were giant, powerful and swift. But the knife pinned you, cut your godly flesh away. Very little was left, you are sure, because you feel insignificant now. The hard, slick heart of your soul, that is what remains. A body small as a river stone, and just as simple. You picture yourself as a piece of indigestible grit, a nameless nothing hiding among other nameless stones. Perhaps you glitter like a gem, yes. Pride makes you hope so. If only you could see yourself. But you have no eyes. Not the dimmest sense survives. What lives is memory. And what slim portion of these thoughts can you trust? The knife stole much more than your body." And from the implications of these cards, we get not only the idea that the Traveler is running, but the Traveler is running from something so vastly powerful that it nearly destroyed it once already. And by the time the Traveler reached us, it's just this. A giant marble husk. A river stone. And that's frightening. And the fact that everything falls onto us Guardians is daunting.
It's just absolutely fascinating to hear those cards. I mean, the knife had 1,000,000 blades. What is that a metaphor for? The darkness, or something worse, something greater? What could have possibly turned the Traveler into this shell that we see today, this river stone, as it calls itself?
I both long for and fear the day that we discover. But for those who might be wondering, my name draws from this inspiration of, though 1,000,000 blades cut apart our Traveler, we, the Guardians, serve as the blade to cut back against that which sliced our Traveler. We are, in turn, the Traveler's blade. And that idea just... the poeticism got me.
It is beautiful.
That is an interesting question, Shizzler, but, you know, we do know that Oryx is a big bad guy. Oryx is big and dangerous and terrifying, but I don't think Oryx is that big. You know, we crushed the Black Garden. The Vex are still here, and the Vex came from somewhere else, so something must still be producing them. And yes, we have dealt the Fallen a vicious blow, but the Fallen are still here, and they still have other houses. We know nothing of what House King's power is, or what they intend, or what they could do. And frankly, we know nothing at all about the Cabal. We don't know what their intentions are, what they will do, or if they have power that we're unaware of. we are aware that we made Oryx mad because we killed Crota. So I think Oryx will come, and we will overcome Oryx. And maybe that will give power back to the Traveler, maybe that will expand our reach, or maybe it'll just be another stepping stone. There's no real saying as of yet.
We'll go into the Hive Pantheon when we get round to discussing the lore and history of the moon and the Hive.
Exactly.
Because from some of the Grimoire cards, Oryx might not be the final big bad for the Hive.
Exactly.
Maybe something more from that is detailed in Toland's The Shattered Journals.
Oh, Toland.
Toland, the crazy warlock.
Yeah. Any other questions pertaining to our dear Traveler? Oh. Oh, and I will say the last thing on to you, Shizzler, with the descending upon the Traveler at the end. I do not think the Traveler is a villain. I think that the Traveler is running, and it is afraid. But I also think it is foolish of us to presume that the darkness never would have come for us if the Traveler didn't first. And I think that had the Traveler not come first, when the darkness arrived for us, we would have been eradicated like we were dust. In that sense, I think we owe gratitude to the Traveler, and defending it is the best thing for us to do. I don't think that there will be a point in which we will have to descend upon the Traveler.
Now you sound like you follow Oolong Tang's teachings about the true nature of light and darkness.
You know.
That's a good theory. I like it. From the dreams of Alphalupa, you can definitely tell that this isn't a malevolent being. It's scared. It's running from something just as we would if we were being chased by a force that nearly destroyed us.
Perhaps the Traveler is selfish, but I don't think the Traveler is evil. I am also very glad that we started this theme. I'm also very glad that we started this stream, Rebecca. We're really glad to be doing it. And I'm not sure what is your Destiny meetup group, Rose, or do you wanna explain that in a message post stream? We can discuss that. And if you're just wanting to spread the word so we can get more questions, feel free. Outside of that, I'm not really sure what you mean. And perhaps it was aiming to improve the races. I think, you know, while the Traveler I think the Traveler came here and empowered us either to protect ourselves or to protect itself. You know, it needed allies, most definitely. Now, whether its motivations were ultimately just to protect itself, or if they were kind of a mix of protect me, protect them, you know, there's no real guarantee. The Queen's brother was an awoken hunter. What do you mean, Shizzler? I mean, he has a knife and looks like a hunter and is also awoken. So I mean, I guess his quote-unquote class could be defined in that sense, but I don't think he's necessarily a hunter in the guardian sense of the word.
Definitely not. He doesn't have a ghost.
Or does he?
A ghost makes you a guardian. Oh, does he? We don't know. Maybe he keeps it under his bed. I don't know.
I hope he doesn't call his a ball. You're back with your ball.
It's alive, and it still has its ball. Oh, I love that line.
Oh man. Well, I would guess that that's more of just an armor model thing that they designed them similarly, or that he's just wearing gear that I mean, you know, Guardians scrounge their gear from various places to suit their methodology more than anything. Yeah. There you go, Alma. Alright, well, if we don't have any more questions right now, I think I may call this stream a wrap. You feel pretty good about that, Lau? Or is there anything else you want to throw in?
I think we covered everything. It was good.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about it. A fallen guardian. Well, the thing is that for him to have been a guardian, from what we know, a guardian has to be resurrected by a ghost and has to have been dead previously. So following that train of thought, he would have to have died and then been brought back. So theoretically, I don't think he could be a fallen guardian, just from that perspective, because he is the Queen's brother. But it is an interesting theory. The idea that there may be fallen guardians just wandering around out there is fascinating. And thank you guys. We love that we've had this many viewers. I'm really glad you guys are here. Please send us questions. Tell your friends. If you know anybody who's like, Destiny doesn't have a story, send them here so we can show them otherwise.
That is our mission statement.
Most definitely. Crispy, are there any other streams this evening, or are we pretty much done for the night? Okay, there you go. All right, cool. If you don't have band and you don't have you can't contact Lau or me that way, then you can send emails to thesafegamers@gmail.com. Next week I will have a proper email specifically for this stream, and I'll be able to get all your questions and sort them out. But for now, band or the Safe Gamers email. We're the last stream of the evening, so I'm sorry you won't have any more Safe Gamers entertainment, but we will be back next week, hopefully with a ton of questions to answer. We'll be talking about the Hive. We'll talk on the Pantheon of the Hive. It'll be a blast. So thank you all for tuning in. It has been a great time, and hope to see you all next week. Any parting words, Lau? Parting salute.
Just thanks to the chat for being so involved with all the questions and just checking out the stream and being interested in the lore and recognizing that Destiny does have a story hidden there somewhere and want to know more about it.
Most definitely. All right, guys, we are heading out just real fast. Shizzler, you can be in Safe Gamers while being in another clan. I think we can probably get someone. You can, if you track down the Safe Gamers clan page and send in an application. You aren't obligated to have the clan tag or anything like that. They'll do an interview, and we'll see if we can get you a part of it. All right, it's been a great time, and we'll catch y'all later.